What about manufacturing in the Motor City itself? Detroit, the original heart of the auto industry.
And today those mills and factories are producing at an all-time high.
Civil rights leaders make a joint condemnation of the violence and call...
Manufacturing began to desert the city in the 1950s and 60s amid racial tensions and riots. The automakers wanted bigger, newer plants in places like Macomb. For a long time, abandoned factories like this were the symbol of urban decay here. But in the last decade or so, young people have been moving back to the city. Ford has converted Michigan Central Station into an innovation hub, and I'm heading next door to New Lab to meet two guys from New York who started off in e-bikes. Justin and Chris now matchmake other companies with suppliers, manufacturers, and distributors, all based in the U.S. It's all about hardware, from e-bikes to drones, robots to telescopes.
A lot of times if there's defense applications, they might have more requirements around domestic manufacturing.
These two aren't Trump voters, so I'm interested to hear why they are so in favor of reshoring jobs, and in favor, mostly, of Trump's tariffs.
We are really stuck on manufacturing being based on low-cost labor. But if we think about the future of manufacturing in the U.S., it's going to be built on the tools of tomorrow and not the tools of yesterday.
What's starting to happen more and more is unlocking quite a bit of untapped potential in both the buildings and the people and a lot of what exists in this ecosystem.
The reality is most trade over the past several decades has largely been based on loopholes and low-cost labor. And it hasn't really been such a level playing field in the way that, you know, different countries pull strings and do dumping and all these sort of things.
We are not saying that we are going to be able to create, as a country, the entire supply chain for a lot of this technology. This is going to continue to depend on a very globalized world going forward, right?
But in Detroit, there's ready access to both facilities and workforce.
Especially as hardware gets smarter, more complicated, and all these pieces of it, to have that feedback loop closer, there's a lot of benefit.
We're solving some of the biggest challenges this world has ever faced. And we need to be doing that in the most effective and efficient way possible. And that means that we need to be innovating on not just what we're making, but how we're making it.
Up on the roof, I find Aerial Loop, a drone delivery and logistics company. It's a South American company, but they want to manufacture in the U.S.
And the landing spot is over here.
Not just because of tariffs, but so it's easier to pass regulatory hurdles. And so they're close to their biggest market. They're test flying their delivery drone. It's on its way to a sprawling factory complex a few blocks away. But that's where we're heading too. Because this is the kind of place where legacy infrastructure and new tech-driven startups come together in what they're calling micro-factories.
My father and uncle bought the facility in the early 80s. At the time, it was a full manufacturing facility. We had hundreds of machines in here that would stamp out car parts for the big three automakers. Doors, fenders, hoods, deck lids, bumpers, all kinds of parts for vehicles.
Apostolos remembers running around here as a 9-year-old. In the late 80s and 90s, the 13-acre site had up to 350 employees. Manufacturing came to a halt in the financial crisis of 2008, but even then, the site survived by turning into a warehouse and distribution center. Now, Apostolos wants to bring manufacturing back. The aim is for these bays to house microfactories, allowing early-stage tech startups access to cranes, power, and flexible short-term leases. One of the first tenants is Electric Outdoors, which builds off-grid camping systems.
Many manufacturers, especially in their early stages of life, can't afford to go out and build some gigafactory type facility and hope for the best. So we have started building and creating these microfactories within our building, allowing smaller companies the opportunity to utilize what a big factory normally would have, but in a smaller scale.
The building echoes with history. When the factory urgently expanded during World War II, They didn't have time to demolish this church, so they built over it.
The facility was manufacturing parts for airplane wings, parts for tanks. We were even assembling ammunition in this building.
And these old die-cast machines have been put back to use stamping out metal parts for classic cars.
This is part of a trunk, a deck lid on a classic car.
So does Apostolos think we're at the start of a new era?
It is almost like a rising of the phoenix, a resurgence of manufacturing here in the U.S. and specifically in the Detroit area.
It's just that also those are not going to bring back the kind of jobs that were here when you were a little boy.
It won't bring back necessarily the number of jobs when I was a little boy in the actual manufacturing process, but now the products that are being produced require many jobs outside of this envelope, outside of this environment. I've seen this movie before, and it hasn't always ended well, but this has a feeling of definite success.